Gen Zs are driving market transformation. Gen Z veterans posted a stunning 38% increase in VA loan purchases, becoming the only military cohort with year-over-year gains. We had over 500,000 VA loans in 2025, which was essentially up 26.8% over 2024. So here's the thing. If you are a veteran and you've purchased in the last 2 or 3 years, some of the biggest areas, of course, are Texas, California, a lot of the larger states that have large presence of military bases. Here in Virginia, Maryland, DC, we have 22 bases. So about 40% of my business is VA loans. Quite frankly, I've been ranked as a veteran loan officer in the top 10 in the nation for volume by Scotsman's Guide multiple times, always within the top 100. So if you're looking for someone that understands VA IRRRL, VA purchases, I definitely can help you in Virginia, Maryland, DC, and I also have 32 other states covered with other broker owners that I know and have vetted for your behalf. So here's the thing. If you're thinking about doing a VA IRRRL, which is a streamlined refinance interest rate reduction loan, most people that have purchased in the last 3 years, rates have dropped, and you're probably in the money right now that you're eligible to go ahead and do an IRRRL. So 3 main criteria. Let's kind of get into what those are. First and foremost, you have to actually get an interest rate that's 0.5% lower or greater as a savings. So if you're at 6, you got to get to 5.5. If you're at 6.5, you just got to get to 6. But if you can get to 5.5, great. More is good. The VA wants you to streamline this and get a lower carry cost. They're already on the hook for the guarantee of the 25% if you were to default. So if you have a lower interest rate, they generally feel that you're in a better position. So if it's good for the veteran, it's usually a positive in general. So that's the number 1 rule. Number 2, yeah, you do have a seasoning requirement. This is actually to protect you. I think it hurts you, but it's actually to protect you against other loan officers that don't have integrity. For me, it actually hurts my veterans because if I could help them, I would, and I typically do things at no cost. So it helps many veterans, but one could argue that it hurts. But it's 210 days from the date of your first scheduled required payment. So if March 1st of 2024 was your first payment, if you made it right on the first, 210 days from that point, then you're eligible. If you waited to the 15th, then it's 210 days from the 15th. And you had to make at least 6 consecutive payments. Number 3 is you have to recoup all the closing cost that's being rolled into the loan or paid that you're paying within 36 months. So they take those costs, figure out how much you're saving between the interest rate of your old and the new and what that savings is, and you have to recoup that cost within 36 months. They essentially did this because of the same reason they had to put the 210-day rule in, because the VA loan is the best loan. It allows you to roll in your prepaids, your escrows, your closing costs, your VA funding fee, and up to 60 days worth of interest. And you can roll that in, but they want to make sure that it's still cost effective for you and that you recoup your costs within 36 months. So they're protecting you on that. But here's the thing. There are a lot of mortgage guys out there that tout the skipping of 2 mortgage payments in conjunction with doing a refinance, okay? So this is my warning for my fellow veterans, okay? Once you have a mortgage, I'm going to say it again, once you have a mortgage, you never will skip a payment. You always owe the old lender money or the new lender money. Okay? Now, on an IRRRL, they allow you to roll in up to 60 days into the loan, so you don't have to mail out one payment, you don't mail out two payments, so people say, you skip that payment and you skip that payment, right? But the reality of it is you rolled it into your loan. So if you started with a loan at $500,000 and closing costs are $4,000, prepaids are $4,000, if you have a VA funding fee of $4,000, that's 12. Two payments might be another $8,000. You might be rolling in 20 grand on a loan, and you don't need to, and you're being taken advantage of in some cases if you don't understand that, right? When you do all of that, right? There are costs that you don't ever recoup. Closing costs, VA funding fee, right? If you can get a lender credit that covers those, then it's a no-cost refi. But then you have cash flow of escrows and mortgage payments. My suggestion is you try to get a credit for the cost. Those get wiped away then. And if you can get a credit for the VA funding fee, that gets wiped away also. So your goal is to take a loan, in my opinion, that pays you a credit that covers your closing costs and your VA funding fee. I would bring, if you can, your escrows and your interest or your mortgage payments to the closing table. Bring cash to the closing table. At the end of the month, you then would skip a payment. You actually paid it at closing, you didn't skip, and then you get your escrow back from your current lender. So that would be a no-cost refinance scenario. Now, if you want to choose to roll in because of cash flow, some of that, realize that you're taking cash out. If you don't get any lender credit to cover your VA funding fee or your closing cost, you're paying closing cost. So you have to analyze what you can get on a no-cost refi versus paying cost. And you have to understand each and every one of those fees and charges. So I'm going to go into my items to be aware of checklist. Okay? These are 10 items that if you're doing a VA IRRRL, that I kind of want you to have this as a checklist and understand each and every one of them on an individual basis, okay? One, we went over that you got to have at least a 0.5% lower rate. So you want to double check that. It's a requirement. Number two, you have to have had the loan for 210 days from the date of your first payment. So if you've purchased in 2025, you're probably fine in that January to February timeframe if you're trying to do an IRRRL right now. So think of it as like 10 months in general, all right? Number three is important. It's hugely important. Am I exempt from the VA funding fee? And did I pay a funding fee when I purchased? Here's the thing, I've saved a lot of veterans money by asking a few questions pertinent to when they got their loan. Did you pay a VA funding fee? Were you just got out of the service and you hadn't gotten your disability yet, and you bought a house and you paid a VA funding fee? If you filed your paperwork for your disability before you bought the house and paid the VA funding fee, you can petition through your lender, your servicer, to go back to the VA to get your VA funding fee back, and they would apply it to the loan. It's crucial that you do it right here and now, because you don't want to pay off this loan and then not be able to go back and get your VA funding fee paid back, because the servicer is the one who has to go get it for you, okay? If you go directly to the VA, they might help you, but probably not, all right? And then since you have a mortgage, are you exempt or not? If you have a disability, you then would be exempt. If you don't, then you have a 0.5 point funding fee on your loan. So on a $500,000 loan, that'd be $2,500 in cost that's you're going to have to cover or roll in. So that's the first number that you need to be aware of. Next are the transactional closing costs. Actual closing cost when it comes to one-time fees that you do not recoup. Things like your credit report, tax service, flood, title charges, recordation charges. That should be about it on an IRRRL, okay? So understand what that bracket is. What are my actual closing costs? So let's call that $4,000, right? So we have a funding fee, $2,500, closing cost, $4,000. Next, number 5, what are my escrow obligations to start up? Okay, escrows are calculated on when bills are due. It's a government-ran program, and they're allowed a 2-month cushion. You start up that escrow account, you're going to get your old account back. So those should quasi be close and wash. So it's really not a charge. So if you roll that into your loan because you don't want to fund it at closing, you're really pulling out cash, and then when you get your escrow back from your current lender, that's you're essentially taking out cash. Okay. Number 6, are you trying to not make 60 days worth of payments or skipping 2 payments? Here's the thing: if you can avoid rolling that in, it's much better. Here's the thing: your balances, if you rolled in $2,500, $4,000, and then 2 payments plus escrows, you could be rolling in a substantial amount of money and pulling out cash of 2 payments and the escrow, and your balance might go from $500,000 to start at $515 or $520. Here's the thing: if interest rates go down 9 months later, 10 months later, and you do this all over again, and you roll in another $15,000 or $20,000, you're essentially equity stripping yourself. Okay. Now, the only time I'm really okay with someone skipping payments and rolling all this in on an IRRRL is if by skipping the 2 payments and getting your escrow check back, you're paying down higher interest rate debt, credit cards, things of that nature with the money. I'm okay with it at that point. Okay. Other than that, you should try to get a credit that would cover any VA funding fee and the closing cost from the lender. Take a higher interest rate and get a credit rather than chasing the lowest rate and paying points. If you pay any points, that just magnifies how much they're rolling in on the loan. So number 6, understand what you're doing with those payments. You should think about bringing a mortgage payment to the closing table and the escrow. That will keep you from rolling in too much money, okay? And if you get a credit for the cost in the VA funding fee, your balance should stay the same, $500 to $500, if it's a true no cost, and all you got to do is bring your payment to the table and your escrows. You'll break even within 30 days, okay? Number 7, you want to ask, am I getting a credit to cover number 3 and number 4? That's how you figure out if you're doing a no cost or what is my actual cost in doing this loan, okay? Number 8, what is my payoff? All right, what is my exact payoff? So when you get a mortgage statement, let's say it's December statement. December statement, when you make that payment, really is paying November's interest, okay? And if you close December 15th, after you made that payment, you would owe 15 days back to that lender. If you closed on the 12th and hadn't made this payment, right, you're paying 12 days plus 30 days going back to the last statement, your payoff's going to be higher. that's how people get to a 2-month scenario. Close on the 12th, you pay 18 days to the new lender. You didn't pay this payment out in December. You won't pay January, first payment will be February, but you rolled all your interest all the way back to November into the loan, okay? And that's how your balance gets increased. So what number are we on? Know your payoff, and then look at your proposed loan amount. So remember that payoff December and then 15 days. So your payoff is a little bit higher than what your statement balance is. If you add 1 month's payment to your statement balance, it's usually probably pretty correct on your payoff. It's one of the tricks I use, okay? Number 9, if it's a no cost, if someone says it's no cost, there is a difference between no cost and you're not going to bring any money to the table. If some loan officer says, oh, don't worry about it, you're not going to bring any money to the table, the first question you need to ask them is, why or how? Are you rolling everything in, and how much is that? It goes back to understanding your payoff and the new loan amount. If they say that you don't have any cash at closing, then they're rolling in escrows, they're rolling in a payment, they're rolling in closing costs, they're rolling in a VA funding fee, they're rolling in potential points, okay? And number 10 is the protection for the above. The VA requires you to save or recoup your closing costs within 36 months, right? So here's the thing, if you end up doing another no-cost refi 10 months later, you might not have recouped. I mean, like if you rolled all this in and then did another IRRRL 10 months later and rolled, you might not have ever recouped the last refinance. And so here's the thing, I prefer no-cost refis over, or low-cost refis over you rolling all of this in to try to chase lower rates. Now, a super cool thing about an IRRRL, and which is different than conventional loans, is let's say it's now an investment property. If in fact it was your primary residence at one point in time, you then are eligible to do an IRRRL even if it's an investment property. So if you get stationed in another state, get transferred, PCS'd, you're still eligible for an IRRRL. And that's what makes this loan one of the most powerful loans in general, okay? So in closing, if you're looking for some help on a VA IRRRL in Virginia, Maryland, and DC, I would be happy to help. You go to First Meridian Mortgage, you can click on the green or blue button and start a loan application. You can give us a call. If you want to start an application, you can click a button there. If you want to make an online appointment, you can schedule by clicking on the schedule appointment button. And if you're looking to double check interest rates on an IRRRL, it is pretty simple to do. I'm going to walk you through it real fast. You click on a refi and just put in your loan amount, put in your zip code, 22310, your credit score. Yes, you're a veteran. Yes, you have a VA loan prior, otherwise you're not eligible for an IRRRL, okay? And yes or no to if you're disabled. And within seconds, it's going to give you some live rates for a VA IRRRL, okay? So in general, you can use this to cross-reference. It doesn't give every one of my lenders. I have some specials with lenders, so you should absolutely call. If you like what you see here, it might be better when you call me in general, Okay, so it's that easy to actually check interest rates on a VA IRRRL. But give me a call, happy to help. Hopefully you learned something. The VA loan and the IRRRL are the best loans when it comes to purchasing homes. And just like the Gen Zs, they're embracing it and getting more educated and saving money along the way. My name is Kevin Retcher. Talk to you soon. To all the Marines out there, you know what I'm going to say, Semper Fi. Talk to you soon.